Okay, so let's talk about perspectives. Your side, their side, and the messy truth somewhere in the middle. Why do arguments sometimes feel so frustrating, like two people speaking two entirely different languages? Let's say French and Pig Latin. Why does it seem like you're both absolutely convinced you're right, yet nothing either of you say is actually solving anything? Oh, because life is messy like that. Stick with me here, and I'll take you through some examples, plus a few ways to navigate persnickety perspectives. Here's a concept that completely blew my mind, and maybe salvaged a few friendships. Every situation has three sides: your side, their side, and the messy, squishy truth hiding somewhere in between. The kicker? None of those sides is the definitive truth. Picture this. You're walking down the street, and it starts pouring rain. You're soaked, you're late, and the universe is obviously conspiring against you. Meanwhile, a kid nearby is jumping in puddles, laughing like they just found out dessert counts as a food group. Same rain, completely different vibes. Now, take that idea and apply it to arguments. You and the other person might be talking about the same thing, but you didn't live it the same way. Your history, emotions, and worldview filter every interaction. In other words, you're not fighting over facts, you're fighting over perspective, and we're kind of hardwired to be attached to our side. Here's the deal. We're all the heroes of our own stories. In Scientology, they turned this into an Olympic-level sport. We were taught that our lens, the Scientology lens, was not only the only valid one, but that any disagreement was an attack. You weren't just wrong, you might even be a suppressive person, otherwise known as supreme enemy of the universe. Sometimes when someone challenges my perspective, my knee-jerk reaction is to think, are you trying to invalidate me, or are you just an asshat? Those are the only acceptable explanations, obviously. But here's the thing. Nobody sees the world the exact same way you do. And that's not a character flaw. It's just being a humanoid. One time, I had a massive argument with a friend about who was more stressed at work. In hindsight, this is what happens when you turn adulting into a competition. I was convinced my stress level was the absolute worst, like gold medal, triple axel stress. Meanwhile, my friend was equally convinced their stress was off the charts. It wasn't until we both cooled off that I realized what was really happening. We were both overwhelmed, but experiencing it differently. I saw their perspective as invalid because it wasn't my perspective. The reality? We were both struggling, and instead of trying to win the stress Olympics, we could have just supported each other. So the next time you feel like you're on the losing end of a frustrating disagreement, here's a thought. Pause and acknowledge your lens. Ask yourself, how am I experiencing this? What emotions or assumptions are driving my view? Now, consider their lens. What might they be feeling or assuming? Even if you don't agree, remind yourself their perspective is equally real to them. Look for the messy middle. The truth is rarely a neat little box. It's usually somewhere in the gray zone. Another tip is to stop trying to win and focus on understanding. Here's the harsh truth. You're not going to win with perspective. In fact, the whole idea of winning in a disagreement is kind of ridiculous, unless you're a Scientologist, in which case the win is that you're a big being, homo novus, super thetan. Duh. For the rest of us, though, winning means someone else loses, and that just reinforces the divide. Instead, try reframing the goal. Not to win, but to understand. Not to change their mind, but to share yours. Sometimes the best outcome isn't agreement, it's just mutual respect. Imagine, there's one plate of cookies. You're thrilled because cookies are pure joy. The person next to you frowns because they're on a diet and now they're tempted. Cookies equals happiness to you. Cookies equals guilt to them. Same plate of cookies. Now, replace the cookies with literally any argument you've ever had. Same situation, totally different feelings about it. And guess what? Both are valid. Though honestly, cookies are always a win. Fight me on that. Understanding that there are three sides to every situation doesn't mean you have to agree with the other person or pretend your feelings don't matter. It just means recognizing that their experience is as real to them as yours is to you. Shifting perspectives isn't about winning, it's about connection. And honestly, the middle ground isn't such a bad place to hang out. I'll bring the cookies. Oh, and if you ever get frustrated trying to find that middle, just remember, at least you're not stuck in a Scientology ethics cycle, desperately trying to explain once again why your disagreement with someone isn't evidence you're hiding lifetimes of crimes. See, that's perspective. So here's my challenge for you. The next time you're in a heated argument or feel that frustration bubbling up, take a step back, a deep breath, and ask yourself, what's their deal? What's their side of the story? Can you step into their shoes for a moment? Can you let yourself find the messy middle where both sides can exist without needing to win? Remember, understanding is a powerful tool. It might not solve everything, but it can create space for empathy, connection, and maybe even a few less arguments. Ready to give it a shot? Let's talk about it, over some cookies, obviously.